Hi, and welcome back to my series about autism in later life. And I'm gonna do a series of about 5 videos now, just going into more detail about the diagnosis process itself. I've been diagnosed now, and I've made a video about the assessment itself, the report, and what comes next. Now, I think it will be valuable for those of you on this journey to explain each step of the process in proper detail. Because when you're waiting for an assessment, or even just wondering if you should start, it's hard to know what actually happens. What do you say to the GP? What do they need to hear? And what happens after? So, I'm going to do exactly that, a series of videos breaking down each stage. For those of you embarking on this process in later life, I imagine that there was some kind of trigger or event that has resulted in serious confusion and questions about yourself, whether it's a relationship struggle or breakdown, difficulty coping, or seeing something of yourself in someone else who is autistic, in real life or fiction, that you relate to and that's made you curious. Before I did my referral, I watched a series of videos on YouTube about autism. This could be one of the many you are watching, and perhaps you feel the framework is fitting for you. So I'll discuss the referral, the GP appointment, and the 8 pages of proof I walked in with, and that's something I would recommend doing to prepare. Write down what you think are traits you have from the research you are doing. If you find yourself splurging tons of things onto a page or 10, then that's probably a good sign that you're not barking up the wrong tree. Before I even saw a GP, I submitted an eConsult, an online form, and I still have the record of exactly what I wrote. If your local practice offers this service, I would recommend using it. It starts creating a written medical record of your experiences that you can access. As I've discussed in my other videos, the trigger for me was some issues at work. So I told the doctor, and it's noted down that I believe I may be autistic, which is significantly affecting my work. I struggle with social misunderstandings where colleagues criticise my tone or attitude when I think I'm being factual.
You're an imbecile.
I also mentioned literal thinking, following workplace rules exactly but getting blamed for escalating issues. And I said something that, looking back, was really honest. I have been very rigid about fairness and distressed by unfair treatment. That's me, and that's always been me. I told them I was off work with stress, anxiety, sleep issues, and that my private life was affected, which felt embarrassing to write, but I put it in anyway because it was important to get help for the truth. It's sometimes hard to discuss mental issues, but you have to think, if you went in with a broken arm, you wouldn't hide it behind your back. You would show it to them. Then I wrote this line, which I think is the heart of it. Without a diagnosis, I can't access legal protections or workplace adjustments. I wasn't asking for a label, I was asking for a framework and for protection. I suppose if it was a relationship breakdown that triggered making the appointment, it would be to access mental health support to cope with extra or specific difficulties due to autism. The form asked about my expectations. I said referral so I can get the help I might need. And I asked for a note from the GP saying I was going through the diagnosis process to help me return to work. So I submitted that form to the GP surgery on the 11th of August 2025, and then it was just a case of waiting for an appointment. So the GP surgery didn't book me in for an appointment straight away. They sent me a short questionnaire called an AQ10. That's the 10-question screening tool. And to give a flavour of the kind of questions I got, question 1 asked if I often notice small sounds when others do not, to which I would definitely agreed, such as the fan, the fridge, the click of the light switch, all those things that can distract me quite easily. And another question asked if I found it easy to read between the lines when someone is talking to me, to which I definitely disagreed. This is the subtext problem, the thing that's got me into trouble my whole life. I've coped by taking things at face value, but actually that hasn't always worked out for me. I've had so many issues in my life where I have not read between the lines or misunderstood things that go in those grey areas because it's not instinctive for me to know exactly how to behave. As I've discussed in my other videos, it's all been maybe trial and error, and I've had a lot of life experiences that have probably pointed me in the right direction at this stage in my life, but it's not an instinct for me. And question 9 asked if I found it easy to work out what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at their face. to which I put definitely disagree. I've never been able to do that. My wife will testify to that. I might not pick up on some of the things I should be, some of her expressions, which maybe should be dropping hints to how I should be behaving. The last question asked if I found it difficult to work out people's intentions, so yeah, tying into that, I definitely agree. And on this AQ, I scored 8 out of 10. The typical cut-off point for a referral is 6 or above. So that was my first bit of clinical evidence. Not proof of anything, but enough to say this is worth looking into properly. And that score went straight to the GP. So the day after, an appointment was booked for me, and I went in with my wife. I had my notes, what I call my 8 pages of proof in some of my other videos. Here they are. I've still got them. They're quite interesting for me to read back, and I do think it is worth doing something like this if you're seriously looking into possibly being autistic. It just helps verbalise those things when you do see your doctor. Like, you've just written it down, it might be fresh in your mind, you'll be able to answer those questions. Like, I struggle, I kind of stutter over my words, so it's good to kind of have these things fresh. It's in a completely random order. Like, these notes I actually ended up typing them up, and they're the basis of a lot of my earlier videos about autism that I've done on YouTube. Just typed them up and then ordered them into some kind of structure for those videos, and it just really gets you in that mindset. Like, some things you might have wrote down that you thought were traits, but maybe they're not actually, maybe they're just normal things. But all in all, yeah, it just gives you that kind of preparation. If you're serious about finding out and getting that diagnosis, then probably won't feel like work. Like, some people writing down 8 pages sounds like, it might sound like a lot of hard work, but I think I must have done this within like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. It was just all coming out, all sorts of memories from my past and things that are in there. It's not like I went into the GP appointment reading out these 8 pages word for word. I had them with me. Here's what the GP actually wrote in their record. So, for example, that I was seen with my wife. He feels like he could have autism. He has seen a lot of similar traits after he became friends with an autistic person. And that friend I've mentioned before, the one who made me realise similarities after spending more time together. The doctor also put that he has a lot of issues from childhood. He used to be isolated even at home, very sensitive to noise, struggles to interact in social situations, had issues with eye contact. And that's the thing about a GP referral. You don't need to prove you're autistic. You just need to show that these traits exist, and that they've always existed, and that they're causing you difficulty. Try and link it back to those kind of lifelong struggles to prove that, you know, it could just, like in my case, for example, could have just thought maybe it's due to stress at the situation at the time, some of the things that was going on. You just notice yourself, especially when you write this kind of list of notes, maybe patterns, it might link to something else that's happened in your life, a similar way that you've handled it, the kind of issues it's caused you. I think that's important to be taken seriously, basically, is to link it back to earlier life. As I say, that's the thing about a GP referral. You don't need to prove you're autistic, you just need to show that these traits exist, that they've always existed, and that they're causing you difficulty. The GP also noted being investigated at work, he cannot stop thinking about the investigation and said he is not there enough for his wife and children. And that was hard to read back. The guilt, the rumination, the way my brain just latches onto things. He also put about the fact I had a new manager at work who thinks my behaviour is wrong, and that I mentioned that people don't feel comfortable with the way I ask questions. And again, that's my kind of confusion. It's not about what I'm saying, it's about how I said it or how it's landed. And kind of starting this process then, that's kind of made me almost better straight away in those kind of situations, being more aware of these things, basically. He also put about me having a lot of interest in video games, and previous to that it was DVDs, and mentioned sensory things he has been doing for years, like nail biting. The nail biting, the GP picked that up before the specialist report even mentioned it. Discussed that in some of my earlier videos as well, some of these kind of traits, things I've never realised until I've looked at in the context of autism. And the GP also wrote the diagnosis, suspected autism, and the plan refer to Autism Diagnostic Service and advise to await contact, which could be several months away. That appointment itself lasted about 10 minutes, and suddenly I was on a list. And the GP also added a note that going through a process of autism diagnosis could help me back into work. My mind within this framework was already getting better. Things were starting to make sense to me on a very deep level, and this was quite therapeutic. And they sent a letter about my referral, so things became black and white, which helped provide some protection. There is something I wish I'd known more of at the time, like you don't need a diagnosis to get reasonable adjustments at work. Even while you're waiting for an assessment, you can ask for support under the Equality Act if your employer has reason to believe you might be disabled. And I didn't know that. I thought I had to wait for the official piece of paper, but you don't. You could even self-diagnose, and I think your employer might have to take that into account in the way that they deal with you. But the letter from my GP saying that I was on the waiting list for an autism assessment, that was enough for me to start that conversation, ask for clearer communication, written instructions, a bit more flexibility. So just starting the process can result in you getting the help you need. So that was the eConsult and then the GP appointment. But here's what I didn't realise at the time. That eConsult, those answers and that GP appointment, they weren't just admin, they were the first time I'd ever told the full story to a professional. I'd spent 40 years feeling different, difficult, too sensitive, too rigid, and in one appointment I laid it all out. The GP didn't argue, didn't say everyone feels like that sometimes, didn't tell me I was overthinking it. They just listened and referred me. Looking back, that was the moment the door actually started to open. Not the diagnosis, the being heard, the other thing I didn't know. That referral would take 6 months, and that 6 months would feel like forever and no time at all. So the next step, and it took 6 months to get to, is a couple of questionnaires that they send you, and they're called the AQ and the EQ. And I'll talk about what they asked and how I answered and why masking makes every single question complicated. But for now, if you're thinking about seeing your GP, take my advice. Write down why you're feeling the way that you are and take someone in with you if you can, and be honest about how hard it is. You don't need to prove you're autistic, you just need to be heard. And the referral and that 10-minute appointment, it's scattered across my 31-page diagnosis report. Never underestimate the first step and the first time your experience is on the medical record. Because on one level, that appointment was just the beginning, the first domino, the thing that got the ball rolling. But on another level, that appointment was the first time I'd ever told a professional the full story. And the report acknowledges that. Let me know in the comments, have you spoken to your GP yet? And what stopped you if you haven't? And what's helped you get to that stage? Next time, I'll talk about the pre-assessment questionnaires that came 6 months later. If you're in this waiting period now, start thinking of yourself as autistic. Keep researching, it will affirm or deny an explanation that fits. Either way, it will help you in all walks of life, knowing and helping you understand yourself a bit better. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.